Welcome to the NBA DFS build. It's Thursday, January 18th. I'm Kevin Roberts. I will be breaking down the main DraftKings slate. We have 5 games today, so it's a nice, tight, compact slate. Yesterday was 8 games. I ended up doing just okay because every game was a blowout, which was not cool at all. Very annoying, actually. I went against the grain yesterday, and I went with Luka and LeBron in the last game, and I ate the chalky D'Lo. And I was climbing up the rankings because I avoided all those early blowouts that impacted everybody. And, of course, that game also blew out. So I couldn't even win, even though I kind of got it right. But we're here to try to rectify that and win big tonight. So for me, my process is I like to just go through games and the positions and just highlight the top plays, look at the values and the ownership, and just kind of condense it all into one lineup. I know a lot of people like to mass enter and max out 150 lineups or whatever. Totally fine. Or 20 lineup for like smaller kind of GPPs. Also cool. I like to do that too. But I feel like chiseling away and shrinking your player pool to the point where you're really only focusing on the very best plays is useful anyways, no matter what kind of entries you do and what you're shooting for. But also just single entries, you can do a very big single entry and get a pretty nice payout if you take it down, or even if you finish high, you can double, triple, quadruple your money pretty easily. But you're facing less lineups. It's just less of a sweat and everything. So that's just what I like to do. Hopefully I can give you some information that'll help you along the way. On the bottom here, scrolling, you will see my top picks for the day. Keep in mind, it's pretty early in the day. Things can change. I remember yesterday, I literally said I didn't want to play Siakam because of concern that he could get traded. Boom, traded. And I also said, hey, you never know. Something could happen, but probably no injury news will happen. And then Giannis and 2 Celtics get ruled out. Although I did note that Boston players, a couple of them could end up resting, and I was right. So keep that in mind. Adjust as needed for injuries, but let's break down, let's go team by team and break down these games a little bit and look at which players really stand out. So first game is actually only a 2-point spread with Chicago visiting the Raptors. So it should be a decent game, which means, of course, it's going to be a 20-point blowout. The Bulls are road favorites. With Toronto trading away Pascal, that makes sense to a degree. All the Bulls are nicely priced. Vooch is the most expensive guy at $7.5K. They all play a bunch of minutes. Vooch projects the best. Their ownership's kind of split, except nobody's on Kobe White, even though his prices come down. But Vooch, DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, Kobe White, all are totally fine plays. I don't think any of them stand out as major priority plays. Usually, if I'm going to play a Chicago player, I prefer one of them to be resting or out. So I think they're all fine if you get to them, but I don't think I will start my lineup, building around them. I will note that there could be a little bit of value here if Patrick Williams ends up sitting, while he himself at 3.7K could be a decent value if he ends up playing. But I don't think, even so, some of the potential values outside of him are kind of priced up with the Bulls, and the main guys play so much that I don't think I'd really, get too excited about it. On the other side, there is reason for excitement because Emmanuel quickly obviously has a massive role now that Siakam is gone, and he got traded there with RJ Barrett, and OG went to the Knicks. So quickly looks pretty good at 7K. He's got the best projection for the Raptors. He has a very good role. He can score at will. He can set his teammates up. So he looks really good. He's probably my favorite shooting guard play of the slate, just because of all the Raptors guys. He's going to do a little bit more and comes at a discount. Scotty Barnes obviously does just as much, if not more, than Quickly. There's a really good price at 8.1. By the way, I'm wrong. I didn't sort the projections. Scotty Barnes actually projects better by 2, but Quickly is just going to be the better play because – number one, he's at a terrible position. Shooting guard just traditionally is not fun to roster guys at. And he's also 1.1K cheaper. So love Barnes plenty. And Quickly is going to be owned at 31% projected ownership right now. So keep that in mind. But Quickly is just the better he's just a better play right now. RJ Barrett's totally fine at 6.6. He's typically more of a scorer, but at 6.6, 36 projected minutes, the projection's fine. He's totally fine, just not a priority for me. Dennis Schroeder off the bench is just okay. Gary Trent started the last game and was awesome, great value. So I anticipate that happening again. At 4.3K, you can do that. But if he's going to be chalky, I'll gladly fade Gary Trent, even on a small slate. Next game, you got Wizards. They're 12-point dogs at the Knicks, so obviously major blowout risk here. Nobody projects really, really well. At 8.6K, Kuzma just doesn't project well enough for me to feel good about him. I would rather pivot to Julius Randle, who looks way better. And there's other cheaper guys that look good, too, at power forward. Tyus Jones, Denny Abida, and Jordan Poole are just okay. Not really looking at any of those guys. The guy I actually like is Marvin Bagley. 4K flat. Minutes and overall projection look pretty good. He is going to be chalky because there's not a lot of value on this 5-game slate, and also because the Wizards are without Daniel Gafford and they traded away Mike Muscala. So, I mean, unless they go small, Bagley's starting and probably playing 25 to 30 minutes. So, I know he's Marvin Bagley. Doesn't feel good, but on this slate, I think he is good chalk. Hopefully those are not famous last words. On the other side, and by the way, I don't really like any other Wizards. It's mostly Bagley, and that's probably it because there's blowout risk here and nobody projects that well. On the other side, though, these guys are all smash plays. Even in a possible blowout, Julius Randle and Jalen Brunson are two of the best plays on the entire slate. I do not have Julius listed on my top plays here that are on the scrolling ticker just because I'm talking about him here and I don't want to really devote 2 Knicks slots for my top plays. But they're both great, both good prices, great projection. They're going to be owned. You could play the blowout game and fade them and go elsewhere. Totally fine. I mean, 3 good quarters of these guys in this matchup, though. I'm not that concerned about the blowout. Isaiah Hartenstein, good minutes, good projection. His price has actually come down for no reason, really. He played like 40 minutes last game, so no qualms about him. Not necessarily a priority, especially with devoting 1 center slot to Marvin Bagley and other centers looking good too. But he's absolutely in play if he's your last guy in. OG playing a ton of minutes, doesn't project very well, doesn't have much of a ceiling. He's very much the 3rd or 4th guy here in New York. But if you got a guy playing 37 minutes at 6K, he's on the table for me. Nobody else really looks that great on the Knicks side. I'm just going to refresh the injury report real quick as we go here, as we get ready to go to the Thunder-Utah game. Nothing crazy. It just always happens. The second you do this, some big Giannis news. We do know now that Bagley and Isaiah Livers both will be able to make their Wizards debut tonight. Josh Hart is listed as questionable, so maybe let's go back to the Knicks for a second. If he's out, I guess Dante DiVincenzo looks a little bit better. OG looks a little bit better. I don't really want to play with Quentin Grimes and all that, so probably doesn't change that much for me personally. I'd rather he just be in, so I don't really look at DiVincenzo. OKC and Utah. The Thunder are visiting the Jazz. They are 3-point favorites. This is one of the better game environments of the slate. Tight spread, good total. SGA looks awesome at the top, 55 points projection. His ownership isn't egregious. It's SGA. He's been kind of quiet, but his price has come down. And 10.2 for SGA is pretty alluring. Obviously, Utah is a smash spot. So SGA looks great. This is not a slate where I feel like you absolutely have to go spend up and use your money on the most expensive studs. It's not like we have an Embiid or a Jokic or a Giannis or something. I mean, SGA and Sabonis and Halliburton, if he's back, those guys are elite players, and you absolutely can build around them here. But on a site with not a lot of really good value yet, I mean, is Bagley really good value? I don't know. I mean, I'm going to use him, but it's not like I feel amazing about Bagley. So due to that, I don't think you absolutely have to force these guys in, especially if you go with the Knicks duo there. If that pans out, then that's going to be the right call. Moving down the list here, Chet Holmgren looks awesome. I think his projection is honestly a little bit light. The Wizards, even when Gafford was healthy, provide no resistance inside the paint. Holmgren is obviously, a bit of a jump shooter, but he also can work his way inside pretty easily. So he could have a huge game here. Love the price and think he could be slept on a little bit. His projection looks good at only 6% ownership. I like that. Jalen Williams is okay. Josh Giddey's minutes are too shaky for me. Dort is fine at 5K, but I won't prioritize him, and I don't like any of the Thunder value. So SGA looks great, and Chet looks really good, but that's about it for me for OKC. On the other side, Markkanen projects pretty well. He's got a good price. Not a good matchup, but he's at home in what should be a tight shootout, so you can play him very easily. He could be a nice, cheaper pivot away from a chalkier Julius Randle. So I like him a good amount. Jordan Clarkson's okay, but his price is a little bit too steep for me, actually. Colin Sexton's price, too, with only 25 projected minutes. Like, these guys are splitting minutes with all these guards. Keontae George, Chris Dunn, Clarkson, Sexton. Too much splitting going on here for me to like it. The Jazz are splitting center minutes, too. So, honestly, it's Markkanen or bust on the Utah side for me. Indiana could get Tyrese Halliburton back. They could get Pascal Siakam in this game. Benedict Mathurin is also questionable. So, there's a lot of volatility here for the Pacers. This game has a 247 or 248 total with the Kings as 7-point home favorites and the game being in Sacramento. If Halliburton's in, I imagine that could adjust a little bit. Obviously, this is like a revenge game if you're into that kind of thing. He projects fine. Based off of what we've seen him do this year, his upside, 9.9 is just okay, and I'm totally fine paying for him, especially if SGA gets a lot of ownership. What a pivot that would be. So he looks good if he's back. And if he's back, I don't really love any other Pacers. If he's out, Miles Turner and any of these other value guards are in play. But Indiana is just like Utah here. They're splitting all these minutes with all these guys. So everybody's a tournament play. If you're playing cash games or single entry, not that single entry is a tournament, but it's just I feel like you want just some safer options here. If I'm going to target one or two guys to get contrarian, I don't think it'd be from Indiana. And also keep an eye on Siakam. If he's in, that lowers everybody's ceiling here that you'd possibly be using. Mathurin being out with Pascal and Halliburton being out would be interesting. Then you actually could feel a little bit better about some of the minutes for guys like Buddy Hield, Andrew Nembhard, TJ McConnell. So keep an eye on that too. Obviously, it's too early to tell that. That information is not concrete yet. On the other side, the Kings, like I said, are the favorites. I think there is blow-up potential here for sure if the Pacers do not get Halliburton back. So consider that. Sabonis projects very, very well. He's right there with SGA as, being the best raw points projection play on the slate. No qualms about playing him. He's got a revenge narrative here too. And the Pacers aren't really – Miles Turner is okay, but he's not going to stop Sabonis from doing what he does. So he's a plenty fine spend up top. De'Aaron Fox coming in at discount, good projection. Nobody up front is going to stop him. So he's kind of an interesting leverage play here for me in that, number one, Brunson and SGA are probably going to get a lot of the ownership. And number two, Sabonis might get some ownership. So he's a bit of a pivot off of Brunson and a leverage play on Sabonis. So if those guys end up being chalky and Fox is the one who erupts at 9.1K, you're saving some money and getting a stud at 7% ownership. Yeah, that's interesting to me. So I don't think you necessarily always have to go that hard, especially on a 5-game slate. But, one or two different moves from the field is kind of all it takes a lot of the time. So Fox is on my radar for sure. Keegan Murray is a good price. Good minutes projection. His overall fantasy point projection is pretty meh, but he's not going to be – I don't think he's going to be super owned, and that's a good price for him. So he is in play, but more of like a last guy in kind of thing. Kevin Huerter, he has burned me so much this year. I know. What am I doing playing so much Kevin Huerter? It's a mistake. It's that's on me. But he went off 2 games ago. The game before that, he played 1 game with injury. Then last game, he came back down to earth with 23 fantasy points. So you really never know what you're going to get with him. But if he starts at 5.2K in this matchup, he's in play. Same with Harry Barnes and Trey Lyles as GPP guys. And Malik Monk, his price stinks, but he's going to get minutes. But those guys are all tournament plays. I don't feel really good about any of them. It's very much Sabonis, Fox, and Keegan. And right now my lean is Fox just because I think the fact that he's being unknown is pretty interesting. Last game of night, very well could and should be the worst game of the night. But judging off of the NBA and how crazy it can be, the game that most looks like a blowout will probably be like triple overtime, close game. So I hope not, because I am playing for the blowout here. Memphis goes into Minnesota as 12-point dogs, and rightfully so. They have nobody. Desmond Bane, John Morant, all these guys are out. Marcus Smart, Derrick Rose, they have nobody except for Jaren Jackson Jr. So if the game stays close, JJJ is absolutely in play. Good projection, awesome roll. But he's like coming in as chalk right now, which is very not exciting to me at all. But in a vacuum, Jaren Jackson looks great. Vince Williams looks okay, but his price has come up. Luke Kennard should start, and he's okay. Xavier Tillman's okay. But I'm playing for a blowout here, so I'm looking at guys like Zaire Williams, Gregory Jackson, Jacob Gilliard, David Roddy. I mean, pick your poison. I would probably only use one or two here to close the night, and I'm probably not going to go hard at Minnesota here either. But using Memphis starters in this spot, which, by the way, not a good matchup anyways against a top 5 defense on the road. But you add in the blowout factor, and I don't really like the Memphis guys up top. To cap things off, to end it, Anthony Edwards and Karl Anthony Towns project decently. It's a good matchup for them at home. If the game doesn't blow out, they could totally break the friggin' slate, and that'd be annoying as heck. I will say Minnesota did play last night, and this is an interesting spot to monitor potential rest for guys like Edwards, Cat, or Rudy, probably Mike Conley. So keep an eye out for Slow-Mo, Kyle Anderson, Noah, and Naz Reid being interesting values to cap this slate. I mean, if you're doing multiple lineups, I would definitely have a lineup or two where I fit those guys into my GPP teams for sure. As things stand, I think Edwards just has the best ceiling when they're at full strength. And I tend to like Minnesota a lot more when somebody's out. If Rudy's out, Cat looks great, and Edwards is in play. And if Edwards is out, Cat is the play. And if Conley's out, usually I want somebody to be out. And the Grizzlies are horrible and have nobody to feel good in right now, or feel good about right now. So I anticipate this being a blowout. So hopefully that helps you. I got my picks here running on the ticker there. It's a 5-game slate. This should be able to be one we can take advantage of and win some money. So I wish you luck. And if I help you in any way, please like this video and subscribe to the channel.